There are a number of incentives built in Khan Academy, like energy points and badges, and you can imagine using these incentives in different ways in your classroom, including potentially leveraging them to foster some sort of healthy competition among students. And in this video, I want to talk about what was the thought process at Khan Academy as we define the current badging and incentive system. And I do want to stress that in our view, it is an evolving a process. We don't think it's set. We want to gather feedback from teachers and students as well as analyze data across our system as we continue to modify what badges are available and how many points you get for various things. And the other thing I want to talk about in this video is how you can think about using incentives and competition in your classroom. It's actually a non-trivial problem. In fact, it's a very complex problem that requires thought on a number of different dimensions. So I want to ensure that before you begin using them, you're mindful of all the different implications of using incentives. As with any incentive system, and this is not just in education, but pretty much everywhere in every industry in the world, as soon as you put an incentive and a metric in place, you really have to ensure you have a balanced view of things so that people don't focus solely on one metric and one incentive at the detriment of others. The incentives can be very powerful in driving the right behavior, but they're also in some ways a double-edged sword because they can sometimes be abused if not watched closely, particularly if the teacher includes the incentive in the classroom in a more prominent way by talking about energy points and badges with the class. That sends a very different message to the students than when they're only using it online within Khan Academy. So it's important that the teacher is fully aware of all the implications of that. So in the current incentive system, let's pull up what the student sees when they look at their user profile on Khan Academy. And please don't judge this account by how few videos I've watched. I'm actually not logged in, so this is just for example purposes here. But there are three key metrics on the top right of the student profile. The top right, the most top right here, the energy points. Now this is a metric of the amount of effort that the student has put into the system, the amount of energy they've expended on Khan Academy. And you get energy points for pretty much doing anything from watching a video to working on a practice exercise. The number of points you get does vary, and we've tried to optimize it to encourage the student to work on the area most appropriate for them. So for example, if the student has mastered multiplication 3, they would have the most energy points for working on multiplication 4 rather than going back to addition 1, which they've clearly already mastered, or jumping ahead to something like trigonometry, which they may not be ready for. Then we had these proficient exercises, the stars for proficiency, and you get this, as you know, for doing 10 problems correct in a row in a single exercise. This is the best metric to show what knowledge the student really has mastered, how knowledgeable they really are on those specific topic areas. And finally, we have the videos completed, tracks how many videos they've watched. You only get this after you watch the majority of the video, so if you just open up the video, this won't count. It really does require the student to watch the vast majority of that video. Also on the bottom here, we have quite a few badges, and these badges are designed to motivate the student. You get badges for doing things, very easy things in the beginning. These meteorite badges kind of win fast, win easy. But at the same token, there's a number of badges which are very difficult to earn, or some which are actually unknown. They're hidden badges that require significant effort to get. We also have these challenge patches which represent knowledge, mastery of an entire subject area. So arithmetic or pre-algebra, really mastering a number of exercises and doing a lot of problems correct in that subject area. But at first glance, when you look at these badges, it may seem a little overwhelming. There's quite a few badges here. But when you really distill it down, there's only a few different categories that we're trying to motivate. They're tiered at different levels. And students seem to get this very quickly. In fact, I'm actually astounded at how fast students understand our badging scheme and understand what they need to do to earn which badges. But just to summarize the motivations for some of these badges, you can really distill it down to a few major categories. We give some badges for specific milestones on effort. So after you've watched a number of hours of videos on a playlist or got 50,000 or 100,000 or 500,000 points, different milestones, we give some badges along that dimension. We also give some badges on perseverance. So one problem that we face is after a student has worked on an exercise and not gotten proficiency on it, they can get demotivated. So we do reward them for sticking with an exercise. So if they've tried 30 problems or 50 problems on an exercise without getting proficiency, we do reward them when they get at least one problem correct, to keep them engaged. We also have a couple of badges on that represent stronger mastery of a specific exercise. So it can be anything from doing longer streaks, 20 problems, 50 problems, 100 problems correct on a single exercise, or for doing those exercise problems faster. So if you answer 10 problems correct really quickly, you get the Transonic badge. If you answer 80 problems correct really quickly, you get the Lightspeed badge. And this is really just an indication of truly mastering that specific exercise to a deeper level. And then also we have some badges that reward uh, earning proficiency on a set of exercises. So apprentice badges and artisan badges for understanding a large number of exercises in arithmetic or algebra or trigonometry. And this is to really encourage deeper subject matter expertise over a larger range of topics. So that's the main categories of badges. There's a few other badges not on this list, but for the most part, most of the badges can be distilled to different milestones along those various categories. Now, you can probably imagine a lot of different ways you can use these incentives in your classroom, whether it's competitions on energy points or leaderboards or even your grades. But I do want to caution you before doing it, while there is some appropriate use of it, you do have to be very thoughtful about how you do it in the classroom, because the teacher indicating that they value energy points is very different from the student just seeing it on Khan Academy. And it sends a very different signal to the students and drives that incentive at a much, much, much greater level. So you have to keep them balanced and ensure that students are really still focusing on the goals that you're setting for them in your individual one-on-one sessions. So a few things just to consider when you do use competition and encourage other incentives in your classroom. Let me just pull up a few of the major things to think about. So the first here is you need to ensure that the goals or the competition that you're setting out actually is achievable to most students. So as an example, you might have thought of putting a leaderboard of the top 3 cumulative energy points in your class. And that's actually a little dangerous. Think about it this way. I'm a horrible golfer. And if I look at the scores on the PGA Tour and see what the top golfers are making, I look at that and think there's no way I have any business thinking about joining the PGA Tour. So it actually demotivates me, rather than motivates me. And you don't want to have that same behavior in your class where students who are near the bottom look at that leaderboard and feel that they cannot in any way make it on the list. So a better way of doing it is to time box it and say, who can earn the most exercises proficiency this week, or who can earn the most energy points in this 30-minute block. Something where everybody feels that they have a shot at making it in that competition. The second thing is you really need to ensure that the students are focused on the right areas. And this can be dangerous because as soon as you introduce competition, it may focus students differently than where you set their one-on-one individual goals. And as an example for that, you may have told a student that you want them to work on these 3 exercises as a part of their individual goal, but then you have a different metric or incentive in the class on energy points. And like we said, energy points have nothing to do with exercise mastery. It only talks about the effort that the student put into the system. So the student may decide not to work on those individual goals, but put their effort on something else, which feels a little easier for them and is an easier way for them to get energy points. So in general, it's actually very dangerous to use energy points that way, and it's very dangerous to to foster competition that doesn't at least keep the student thoughtful about what their focus areas should be. A better way of doing it might be to say, for this week, these exercises are our focus area. How many students have gained proficiency on the exercises for this week? Or there's other areas that you can do it where the competition ensures that the students are focused on the right areas. And the third thing is, and this goes without saying, but you need to make sure that the competition is healthy. As a teacher, you're the only person who can really judge the students and how they're going to react to it. Some students react very well to it, and it really encourages them to push themselves to the next level. Other students, particularly students who may be remediating on things that they're slightly embarrassed that they're going back to, find it demotivating. So you have to judge your students and ensure that the competition is healthy. And it's normally a good idea to make it more collaborative and team oriented, and foster other healthy things within the classroom. So in general, when you're thinking about these incentives and competition in your classroom, and there actually are a lot of good ways to do it, and we'll try to start to document more of these, so there's more ideas for you in the classroom. But it is important. I wanted to stress that you need to be thoughtful of what exists in Khan Academy and why we designed it, and how any incentives you put on top of that may lead to behavior that you did not intend it. So you need to be very thoughtful about how you do use the incentives and competition in your classroom.